Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to another episode of eDiscovery After Hours. My guest today is Christine Porras from Oasis. Christine's become a great friend of mine over the past year or so. We had an awesome conversation about, we each have daughters named Ellie, about being bilingual, about her knowing your value initiative in the eDiscovery industry and kind of where that came from, and a whole host of other things. So it was a fantastic conversation. I hope you enjoy it. Today's sponsor is Discovery Master to track document review projects in relativity, either multiple projects in the same instance or projects across multiple instances. With one login to see everything, check out www.discoverymaster.co. Thanks.
Quick time!
You don't know how to drink, your whole generation.
Drinks on the house.
Yes, sir.
No, wait a second. Drinks are 50% off.
Right.
No, wait a second. Double the price of everything.
And I work only 16 hours a day.
A union man only works 8 hours a day.
I belong to 2 unions.
And now, eDiscovery After Hours with your host, Ryan Short.
Okay, Christine Porras, thanks for being on the show. Cheers.
Cheers, my friend.
I would say, what are we drinking? But we're drinking different things. Why are we drinking different things?
Because I did not find the time to run out and get the bottle of rosé that I wanted, but I do love rosé and I love bubbly rosé. What I did have is something called Smash, which is, you know, I feel like it's a mom drink in the sense that it comes in a can. I can keep it super cool. It has vodka in it and some, other kind of flavor. Yeah. But it's like the best one out there, right? I've tried them all, like High Noons and White Claws and all of that kind of stuff. This is, I'll show it to you.
Look at this. This is product. We're going to have to get a new sponsor. Discovery Master is about to get bumped.
From Devil's Backbone, the brewery. If you haven't been there, you must go. The food's amazing. And they make this Smash in all sorts of different flavors. 11%. So
that'll get the job done.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So Christine, you probably don't know this. I don't think I've ever told you this, but when I got I thought maybe delusional idea to start this podcast up, I told Ray, my boss, hey, I'm thinking about doing this thing. And he's like, yeah, that sounds good to me. Go for it. And then you and I were on the phone later that day. I have my daughters at their ballet studio, and I'm walking around outside on a call. And I'm like, hey, by the way, I have this kind of crazy idea. What do you think? And you were like super pro, like very enthusiastic about it. So here we are all these months later, and you're here, and yay, this is awesome. It's like a full circle moment. It's very poetic.
I love it. I mean, I know that podcasts became really popular and like web, video interviews and stuff, but this is different. Like, this is what you miss, right? This is what you miss from like us being at Legal Week and being able to just sit and just hang out and talk about like our kids and how have you been? How's life? Like, let's have a drink. And I miss that part. I mean, obviously I miss the other part too, like the getting out and going to a conference. But no, I think this is why I was so excited about it, because I figured that you can sit and talk to people and just see them, Yeah.
So speaking of kids and daughters, we each have a daughter named Ellie.
Yes, we do.
So what's your Ellie's birth name? Is it Elaine? Is it Ellie? Is it Eleanor?
So her name is Elena.
Okay.
Elena, really. She's named after her grandmother who passed away a long time ago. Yeah. But her grandmother, she used to spell it with an H. So like Elena, right? Oh. With an H. Yeah. And I cut the H out. And so it's Elena, which you can also spell that. And then there's Ellie.
Nice. So my Ellie she's Elaine, but she's also after my wife's grandmother. So we have 3 daughters, and our unintentionally, what we came to decide on is, I guess, we have this theme going, it just sounds like a bunch of old ladies playing bridge. Because between first name and middle name, we have all of our grandmas covered, right?
Oh, wow.
So if I ever have, I told Lindsay, I'm like, we can't have more girls because we're out of grandmas. And then of course our third was a girl. And so now she's pregnant again. So we'll see if I finally get around.
No way.
Yeah. True story. So
do you know what you're having? No.
Just a baby. I don't know.
No.
But we've never
find out.
Well, we've never have before, but I think we probably will this time, just to see what that experience is like. So we'll go for it. But you also have 2 boys, right?
I have boys, yes. And
so what are the
always
ages?
wanted a girl.
Ages?
David is 13. Daniel is 7. And then there's Ellie. She's 4. But I always wanted a girl. And I had to know, right? And when I was pregnant with Daniel, I will admit, like, I cried when I found out he was a boy because I was like, I really wanted a girl, right? I mean, I was that person, right? Like, I wanted a little girl, dress her up like me, like do all this stuff. And then I have a daughter and she does not like to wear dresses. She doesn't want to do, I mean, she wants to do everything that her brother does, you know? So it's fine. It's just, I wanted a girl so bad.
So do you think that there are big differences between raising boys and girls generally?
You know what? No, in the sense that I think it's about their personality. I don't think it has to do really with their gender, right? Because everybody's like, oh, boys are so active and girls are so, that's not true. At least in my experience, right? My older son was like super active and just all over the place. Like, I feel like every single picture that I have with him, he's either, trying to get out of my arms or like running in front of me or like running behind me. So we don't really have any pictures where I'm like with him and it's like nice.
Yeah.
And then Daniel is, I call him the good egg. I hope my older son never watches this, but I do, because he was like just a little angel. Like, he was such a good baby and he's such a good kid and he's so chill. Like, all my friends say he's like an old soul. Like, when you talk to him, and he's just like a little old man. Yeah. But then there's Ellie, and Ellie's like running circles around everybody all the time.
Yeah.
So I really just think it has to do with their personality, like who they are. Like, and I don't know.
Yeah, I think I tend to think that's true too, because we have 3 girls and they're all so radically different. In fact, I got a text yesterday from my wife. They were at the doctor's appointment. So our girls are 6, 4, and 2, and they were at the 2-year-old's 2-year checkup. And the 6-year-old was making a bunch of noise and not being a good listener and not behaving. And so Lindsay says, okay, you don't get dessert tonight. And the 4-year-old out of nowhere just looks up and gets this huge smile and goes, do I get dessert tonight? And like, boy or girl aside, doesn't matter. Like, those hilarious little personality differences and how they all poke and teach each other. I love that. I love that stuff. That's amazing.
I think it's super hilarious in our house because, David is so much older. And at moments, it's like he's 7 years old again, right? Especially because Daniel acts, more mature. Mm-hmm. So he will like just to spite him sometimes, like say things or whatever. And then the 2 of them are like, I'm like, really? Like, you're 7 and 13. Like, this should not be happening. But they know how to like press each other's buttons.
I love it. That's fantastic.
And then Ellie just comes in and slaps everybody. So it all works out.
Yeah, like, she's like the queen of the castle, I think, based upon how I hear her in the background when we're on calls together.
So embarrassing at moments. I mean, I'm sure that everybody at Oasis is going to hear this. So it's not on all our calls. It is on one call that was really bad in the middle of the pandemic. And yes, she was like pulling my hair and she was just like, ah.
Yeah.
But yeah, she does. And she was home with us March to July.
Yeah,
right?
That's right.
And that was brutal. Hard. Like, I love her, but it was brutal because it was like we had all the kids in the house and she's that one, like, they're like so small that you got to be there with them. You got to, feed them and talk to them and like pay attention to them. Like, so it was very challenging.
I think one of there was like a period where, man, we had so much going on in like our personal and professional lives. And it was right around, it must have been Mother's Day, because you texted me a little GIF that had a kid looking at a little tablet. And it was like, happy Mother's Day to all the iPads out there.
Exactly.
Oh, I was dying.
I was so grateful. So my husband's more about the no electronics, like none of that kind of stuff. And I'm not. right? Like they all have an iPad. And, not that they're on their iPads all the time, so let's not get judgy people, but, it has to happen. We both work full time. I don't have a live-in nanny. I wish I did, but I don't. So at moments it does happen. But I was very grateful during the pandemic that everybody had a device. Everybody had a corner in the house that they can like retreat to and make a fort and like not talk to mommy for an hour while her boss was calling her. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I was very grateful.
Yeah.
I'm very grateful to you, Apple.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Okay. So you noted Elena, right?
Elena, sí. Mm-hmm.
Elena.
Yes, see, I'm even talking to you in Spanish.
That was going to be my next question, right? So I think you're like fully bilingual, right? Like fluent in both languages.
Yes.
In Espanol. Okay, right. So are your kids as well? Are you making it a point to teach them Spanish? Or for any conscious or subconscious reason, have you not passed along that aspect of your heritage?
So my family's from Ecuador. My husband's family's from Colombia, and we do have family back in Colombia and in Ecuador. So we do take the kids, obviously, before the pandemic. We would, take the kids, and we lived in Ecuador for 2 years with the kids.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, we did. So right before I moved to Maryland, we were in Ecuador for 2 years because we wanted to give them like that, like living abroad opportunity. I lived abroad when I was younger, and so had my husband. So we figured it's a good opportunity to go. We were both working remote, and it was a great experience for them. But going back to the Spanish thing.
Yeah.
We try really hard. In my household, like when I was growing up, my dad only spoke to me in English and my mom only spoke to me in Spanish. Nice. It helps that my dad didn't really learn Spanish he wasn't really fluent until he was older, and actually through work started traveling to South America. And then he became super fluent. But my mom wasn't. She came to the US when she was 21. So she was not talking to me in English. And I tried to tell them to talk to the kids in Spanish, but she will then talk to the kids in English. And I'm like, no. But in our house, we do both talk to them in English, and I sometimes speak to them in Spanish. David is, I want to say, pretty fluent. Like he understands everything. He does talk with a bit of an accent, which we're working on. Daniel, I think, fully understands, but does not speak. Like he won't do it.
He won't even humor you. He's just like, no.
No. And I will tell him, like, there's afternoons where I'm just like, in my mind, I think I should talk to them in Spanish. Like it's that like moment. And then I will talk to him only in Spanish, and he will answer me right back in English all the time. So we try. I think it's so important for them. I mean, and not even Spanish. Like I feel like it's so important to know another language, to be able to experience another culture, to understand another culture. But we do. And my older son takes French as well.
I love that.
Yeah.
So I'll show you how big of a hypocrite I am here publicly. This is our public confessional. So I think you're generally, right, like a better human being if you speak multiple languages, because there are just certain ideas or emotions or, just experiences that just they literally don't translate as beautifully and naturally from one language to another. And so the fact that if you speak multiple languages, you can be open to more ideas and experiences and emotions and et cetera. I think that's amazing. And so I was never a strong math student. I was very gifted in languages. And so the irony is that, growing up in small town Indiana, you don't have a lot of opportunities to learn different languages. So, I did Spanish like everybody else in high school, and then I tested out most of it in college. And then for the last 15 years, haven't used it at all. So there's been 2 times in my life after high school and then the testing out in college where I've actually made a concerted effort to get more in touch with Espanol. So the first was I was young and single living in Chicago, and I finally had enough money to buy a used TV. I mean, this was big time, early career, Well, I lived alone in a studio apartment, and so every night I would go home, and while I made dinner, I would listen to Telemundo.
You should have watched Spanish soap operas.
Yes, I know. Get in touch with my telenovelas. So then the other thing is that we made the decision. I say we, my wife and I said yes, dear. made the decision we're homeschooling our 6-year-old who just started kindergarten.
Okay.
And that's for a variety of reasons. And frankly, it's something that we talked about for like 2 years. And I was like, this is never going to happen. And then it happened. And I'm like, this is great. So what I'm doing now is I'm teaching her Spanish. That's like Lindsay does like all the real like hard work, like the grammar and the phonics and the math and the science and all this stuff. And then I get to come in and do Spanish. So I have no choice but to get back in touch with it because I want her, she's 6 years old, right?
Right.
If we start teaching her Spanish now, she'll barely remember, if ever remember, a time in her life where she didn't. And so I think that's really cool. My brother, he would never admit to it. He's conversational. I wouldn't say he's fluent. But he's lived in Madrid. He travels regularly to Central America, to Mexico. And I just think I'm jealous, right? I think that's awesome. So I want to give that to my kids. But like I have family from Germany, the Gaelic speaking part of Ireland. Oh, wow. I'm actually a quarter Armenian, right? But like all that's gone because my great grandparents all made the decision to like, we're going to be Americans. We're going to assimilate. We're going to like not bring in the food and all this stuff. And I kind of miss that. I'm like, man, if you could have looked a couple generations into the future, like I wonder if their decisions would have been the same.
Right.
Maybe, I don't know. But
I feel like for the difference in like my family was that my father's side of the family, when my grandfather moved to the US and he ended up moving all of the kids, he really just worked. Like him and my grandmother worked so much. And I'm very close to them because my father and my mom had me when they were very young. And so I really grew up with my grandparents my whole life and my great grandmother for that matter. But they were like not necessarily around so much, right? So the kids, like my dad and his siblings, I think just, surrounded themselves, immersed themselves in the school and whatnot. I know at home, it was always like, you spoke Spanish. So, which was shocking to me because, my dad's Spanish was not great when he met my mom. So, but on my mother's side, like she came out to the US, her father had passed away and she really just needed a change of environment. Like she didn't even come to the US because like she wanted a better life or anything like that. It was just kind of like, my sister's there and let me just go check it out. Yeah. And then she stayed obviously, but she grew up only speaking Spanish. So for her, it was really difficult to, just say, well, now I'm not doing it. And so thanks to that, I feel like traditions and just like our culture in general has just been able to pass on from like the kids and stuff. I mean, I see my cousins and I can't say that all of them speak Spanish. I can't say that they're all like, like they all know about, our holidays and stuff. And I'm much older than they are, but we try. I think we try, my grandmother tries to, celebrate holidays, maybe like she would in Ecuador and like make traditional food and like have everybody over. And I wish that we had more of that, right? Because I feel like I do want the kids to see other things and I want them to experience the different cultures and whatnot. But having said that, I think traveling is really important. And I think that traveling at any age, but just like getting out of where you are and just kind of seeing the world. The other thing is too, with the Spanish that you're trying to do, because we're trying to do French in the house because of my older son. Listen to music in Spanish, like kids music in Spanish, or watch a movie together, or maybe like whatever their favorite show is, you can just put on the subtitles in Spanish and kind of like have it in the background all the time. I know it's hard, but you can try that way to just kind of like, sprinkle it in like your everyday life. So it doesn't feel like a chore, right? Yeah. Like, oh, great. Now it's Spanish time, We
have a family friend who wrote a little children's book. So we're Catholic, she's Catholic. And so it's this little book about like her daughter, like, who loved the little Mary statue they had in their backyard, and how in the winter she would take a little scarf out to Mary. And in the summer, like she would bring her like her sippy cup or whatever, right? It's this really cute thing. And the entire book is in English, and then directly beneath it, it's in Spanish. And so at the end, they have the Hail Mary. And so whenever, we read that book, every couple of days or, every, 2 weeks or so. And so at the end, then we always pray the Hail Mary in Spanish since it's printed right there.
Oh, wow, that's so
cool. And the
cool.
girls think it's the coolest thing, right? My little, like, dirty blonde and redheaded, like translucent skinned daughters of Irish English descent just think it's the coolest. So, okay. So speaking of literature, I think when you got up to get your drink, I saw Harry Potter on your bookshelf behind you.
So
how many hours? How many hours are during the 8 to 5? Are you deep into the Harry Potter?
All of them. I mean, all of my hours. Like, I don't even know what I do at work other than just read Harry Potter. No, I do really like Harry Potter, and I thought that my older son would really get into it, and so I got all of the books, and I got those. Like the Harry Potter cookbook. And I got that like visual book that when you open it up, it like pops out and it's like Hogwarts Castle or whatever, you know what I mean? Like I got all of, it's so cool. And then my older, not my older, but one of my cousins was like a really big Harry Potter fan.
Yeah.
So when Harry Potter did come out, like I would always like get that stuff. So as my son got older, I was like, oh, we're going to do this, like Harry Potter, Star Wars, like all of these things. Like I just wanted to immerse him in all of that. He did not like Harry Potter. He still doesn't. No, I know. And I even bought even the visual ones, like the books those like the newer version of the book where it's like the book and it has like the illustrated version.
Oh, I haven't seen those. I'm old
They're
school.
So beautiful. I even got those. He didn't like that, but he did love Star Wars.
Okay. That's fair.
And so he loves like all of that and like the visual dictionaries and that kind of stuff.
All right. You got something. That's good. What's it like to have a teenager in the house? Are you surviving? Is that a thing?
He's always had like an attitude. I feel like it's probably my fault, right? Like he just has attitude. Like he just gets up and it's just there. I will say though that I don't know. I think maybe it's because of the house and kind of maybe our rules or whatever, but he's not like, other friends complain about their teens, right? And I don't like to, judge them or put them together or whatever. But sometimes I'm like, oh, wow, so my teen's not so bad, right?
Yeah.
Because like, some people are like, oh, well, he just plays video games all day and he just does whatever all day and he doesn't talk to us. And I'm like, that would not fly in my house, right? Like just wouldn't.
Right.
So I don't feel like I can complain about him. But the attitude is there.
Yeah. And,
he has to be checked often that, I'm the only person in the house that can have so much attitude, right?
I'm enjoying the innocence right now, aside from like the dessert story that I said 10 minutes ago. Okay. So you had a blog post that went up, I feel like it was sometime last year, or maybe I just saw it for the first time last year. But it was about like the birth of Ellie and how it made you more like self-aware and kind of check yourself in the mirror of like, how do I kind of carry myself and reinforce the, like the intrinsic value. I'm trying to read, there was really beautiful phrasing in there that escapes my moment now, but you kind of turned it into this like thing within the industry of like knowing your value, right? Can you talk about that a little bit? Because for those who aren't aware of it, I think it's really important.
Thank you. So I started off in the industry like 2001, 2000 maybe, and, male dominated industry. I kind of fell into it just like everybody else, but I did fall into it in like a practice support group. So I never really worked as a paralegal, which is what I was supposed to do. And I kind of like just grew up in the industry and my career and whatnot. But I did realize very late in life, and I think that that's probably why I try to talk about it so much. And I want people to see that, because when I had my daughter, I realized, there's all these things that have happened throughout the years that in my mind, I kind of just would sweep under the rug and just kind of move on. Right. And you shouldn't, because I think it eats at you. And I think that it does ultimately make you question yourself, and you end up making mistakes and decisions that you shouldn't have made. So when I had her, I also, around that same time, I had a coworker that started at Oasis, and she's like one of those people that just like, she knows herself and she's super assertive. Right. And so like when I walk in a room, like people are like, you're so confident and you're kind of obnoxious, it's like, must be a New York thing or whatever, but I am. I am. I mean, I know what I know. I don't pretend to know other things. I love working as a team. So like, I feel confident in work and like the things that I talk about, like with prospects or clients or whatever. But I realized that there was so many things that were happening to me, not just at work now, but even before, that I just never recognized. Like I never stopped to say like, you know what, that's a microaggression, or you know what, I'm being discriminated against, or you know what, I know what this means. You don't have to try to explain it to me, like those kind of things. And so after having Ellie, I didn't want her to go through all that. I don't want her to. I want her to look at herself in the mirror and give herself affirmations. And I want her to know that she's enough and that she's smart and that she can do anything that she wants to do. But also because of meeting this person, it even like pushed me even harder, right? Where it was like, it's never too late. Like it's never too late for you to figure that out. It's never too late for you to turn around. It's never too late for you to write your own story, to write your own page. And if that means that you have to get up and leave a job because you're not respected, then leave the job, right? Like start somewhere else, start fresh. And so with that, I was given this opportunity during Legal Week to originally was going to just talk about stellar women and kind of like passing the torch from Joy to Stephanie and Clerkin. And so it started off as that, and then it kind of morphed into something completely different. And I invited several other women to sit on the panel, and I wanted to talk about this. And I purposely didn't make it fully structured because I don't want to spend the time to record something, to talk about something if it's rehearsed.
Yeah.
And so,
hence this podcast.
Right. And so we had a very open and honest conversation about a lot of different things. And the women that were on the panel were absolutely amazing. There was Coretta Soto. There was Lourdes Slater, myself, Joy, Stephanie. And it was great. I thought it was incredible. I would have liked to continue that series, but then COVID kind of hit, and I did do a Know Your Value in regards to money. That was another very big thing and something that we fully didn't touch upon in that panel. And I think that was also very important. It's important to talk about, right, the inequity when it comes to pay, especially in our industry. And so I did do like a follow-up panel on that, but I try. I mean, even if it's talking to someone else about it and learning from each other, I feel like it's important. And then we need to do it as a community of women. So not just within our industry. I also, from that, and I've always been part of Women in eDiscovery from like ever ago. Really, and I can't even think myself, like it was like people like Shauna Pedersen and like Joanne Lane who had, would bring us all together in New York way, way, way back when. And so I had always been, but I had never really pushed myself to be a part of the organization as part of like a chapter, really, and doing anything. But I did this past year. So I started doing social media for the DC chapter because I felt like it was a medium, right? Like it was something where I believe in the organization and I want to kind of put out what that message is. And I can do that in a way where I'm reaching people, but I'm doing it through like a community of women and this organization that supports this. So I'm really excited about that. It's been about a year now, maybe. So, and at work, they're supportive. Sorry.
No, I apologize. I cut you off. Do you, that was not mansplaining, by the way. That was just.
Yeah, you were. Totally.
Do you generally feel that there's been progress on that front? I mean, you mentioned starting this industry, almost 20 years ago. I mean, do you feel like things have gotten noticeably better? Because one of the things that I appreciated coming into the industry, right, having 3 daughters of my own was, I came in, COVID shut everything down literally that day, not an exaggeration. And so everything that I did was getting online and going to and listening to webinars and watching YouTube videos and reading blogs and all these things to try to learn what's this eDiscovery, since I was, recruited to help these attorneys who built a piece of software turn it from a product into a business. And one of the things that I was so pleasantly struck by was how many women were writing these blogs and how many women were on these panels. And I did my most of my background is in another male dominated industry. And it was like a really cool, I thought, kind of a realization for me, like, wow, I'm in this place where it's like, as my daughters grow up and like, oh, what's that eDiscovery thing that you did? I'm like, oh, well, you should totally look at that, because I mean, it seems to me that there's a lot of women leaders. Do you think that progress has been made, or is that illusory, or is that, is my perception skewed?
No, I think a lot of progress has been made. And I think there's so many women in the industry that have really pushed for that, right? Like that has always been their agenda outside of work, has always been to really promote other women, to support other women. And so, yeah, definitely progress. I mean, you see it out there, right? You see all the women that are posting things, and you can see that there's more conversations about all of these things that we're talking about right now, right? Like all of these topics, like it's more open, it's more okay to talk about them. Whereas I think before that wasn't really the case, right? Before, I feel like it was something that happened and maybe you might have just talked with a friend about it, but it wasn't really something that you were posting on LinkedIn, right? Like creating an infographic about knowing your value and how much money you should make and posting it. Like that's not something that I would have done 15 years ago.
Right. You know? Yeah, that's totally true. Well, and it's worth celebrating, right? I think that sometimes there's a temptation across a lot of different issues, right? Whereas it's like, it's okay to acknowledge that progress has been made. It doesn't mean that we're done. It doesn't mean that there's not still work to do, but we can celebrate the steps that have been taken and the successes and the people who have, who have helped kind of, break that ceiling or at least put cracks in it, et cetera. So I think that's important. So, all right, cool. So you mentioned right before we started recording, hey, we never got a chance to talk about to what you want to talk about. I'm like, yeah, that's kind of the way we do things around here. So you haven't had any time to prepare because maybe you didn't know I was going to do this, but at the end of every conversation, I always turn over to my guest and say, hey, is there anything eDiscovery specific or anything about, your firm or your practice group or your piece of technology or whatever that you think people ought to know about or that you want to talk about? So let's hear, what's your eDiscovery soapbox? Oh,
wow. That's
how about them apples? Yeah.
Yeah, really. I feel like I talk about technology all the time. Yeah. It's like what I do all the time. So no, I'm not going to get on that.
It's kind of your day job.
What can I say? eDiscovery related work, right? I came to this company 6 years ago, really following someone else's dream and starting something with this person who I admire very much. And I feel like company culture is so important. And I just feel lucky and I feel grateful about where I am. And I think that's maybe why I also try to talk to people about, like, if you're not happy, you have to say something, you have to do something. Nothing is perfect. Absolutely nothing's perfect. But I feel like honesty is huge. And if you have a company culture that you can stop and be honest and you can move forward and pave your way, then that's worth everything.
Yeah.
And so I think, a lot of times, I mean, like, at least for me, I was very scared to go to the service provider, like a service provider job. I had a lot of people asking me to, go work for a vendor. Never, ever. Like I never wanted to, because I always kind of felt that I wasn't going to be, valued, that I wasn't going to get the benefits, I wasn't going to do whatever. But it was so much more than that, right? Because although I had amazing people that I worked with and I had amazing benefits, I was never part of something. And I think that that's the difference for me now, that at least I feel like I've made my contribution to the eDiscovery world in my own way. Mm-hmm. And I think it's through the opportunity of working at a great company with awesome culture and with the people that I work with in the team, because they're absolutely amazing.
Yeah. Well, and I would second that. I mean, all of the folks that we've interacted with over the past year have been the depth and consistency of integrity and candor has been incredible, right? Especially for a young company finding its footing. So kudos to that. So Christine, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure to talk to you on the record for the first time.
And it's so great to do this on a Friday. I'm so glad that we did this. And I feel like, I was having major FOMO and jealousy. And every time I saw one of your, videos come out, I'd be like, I'm not watching this one until mine comes out. So I've been wanting to do this for a while. So thank you. And
well, the pleasure is mine. And now you have the whole weekend to listen to the other episodes before yours drop.
Exactly. Take care. Thanks.